From you in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 42 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Darren Dreger along with Ray Ferraro. We've got Dallas Stars broadcaster Daryl Reaugh joining us later in the podcast. And Ray, I'm looking forward to the conversation with Daryl Reaugh because, we weren't in the bubble, but neither was Daryl, right? Like, he's back in Dallas while his Dallas Stars are vying for a Stanley Cup championship. You've called games as a broadcaster off tube, as we like to say, which is watching the monitor and responding to what everyone else is seeing. I mean, you might have a couple of different television angles that the guy at home doesn't get to see in the moment when you're broadcasting games like that. How much of a challenge do you think emotionally this has been for Daryl Reaugh, who has watched and has participated in every second of Dallas Stars hockey for 20 years? I mean, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, the toughest part, two things are really difficult when you call it off monitor in a studio. One is it's really easy to get caught up in the game when you're at the arena. Like, right. The crowd is going up and down, and you can bring, your energy gets fed by what's going on in the building. So when you're in a studio, there is no energy. And it has to be quiet, right? Because you don't want any background noises. So, you have to bring all of the energy, or it sounds super boring and super flat. And that is a challenge, for sure. The second thing is, when you're at the game, of course, you can see everything. And when you're at the TV or you're at the monitor in studio, you're just watching TV. I caught myself a couple times, Dregs, I'd catch something at the back end of the play, and I know two guys are pushing and shoving, or somebody might have been hurt. And I caught myself trying to look down the TV screen. Yeah. Kind of moving my head forward and looking back and just seeing if I could. And then I'm like, what the hell am I doing? It's a TV. You can't see anything. So that is a real challenge. So I'd be curious what Razor's feeling there.
Yeah, we'll talk to Daryl Reaugh of the Dallas Stars coming up on the podcast.
I'm going to describe him right now, in his term, as loquacious.
Loquacious.
He is quite a wordsmith, and we'll see how quickly he gets rolling there. He pulls out some words. I'm like, I'm not so sure I know what that means.
When you talk of color commentators in sports, few more colorful than Daryl Reaugh. And look, the beauty of Daryl too is. He's an excellent hockey analyst, but he doesn't take his life too seriously, or it doesn't seem professionally, right? Like, when the Dallas Stars stink, he says they stink. He does those video snippets that he used to post. The post game were awesome. I mean, it's must-watch television because they're quick, but they're to the point. And he's not afraid to be the cheerleader of the Dallas Stars when it's appropriate, but he's not afraid to call it like he sees it. So looking forward to that. Lots of good feedback from episode 41, where we had Travis Green of the Vancouver Canucks join us. We talk post-interview with Travis and how open he is and how funny a guy he is and how the personality showed in that podcast. And I think he was very honest too, right? I mean, Vancouver Canucks fans, in responding to that interview, I think liked what they heard in terms of the level of accountability that, he throws at every single player, but especially the younger players, without shackling them or taking away the creativity of an Elias Pettersson or a Quinn Hughes, as an example.
I think the general thought is, when you have a system that players are restricted from, doing what they do, or, creating offensively, because every system really is very, very, let me put it this way, very little of the system is about creating offense. It's mostly about preventing offense. But there is parts of systems that you build in hockey. Of course, in basketball, it's different, where all the plays are so much more set. But in hockey, you try to get to a point where you can make an unpredictable offensive play out of something that's in your system. Right. And Greeny really, I think, talked about how he's not going to stifle creativity, but there's accountability to it. I think the people that follow the Canucks really liked it because Travis doesn't give much
No.
when he's at the podium. And so they got a better sense of what he does behind the bench.
We've got Ask Ray and Dregs Anything coming up in episode 42. Obviously, we have to touch on the Stanley Cup Final, and we'll do that more with Daryl Reaugh as we're recording episode 42 here. It is Wednesday, so in preparation for Game 3. Big week for Ray Ferraro. We've been talking about this for a number of weeks now, and the fact that you've got knee replacement surgery, not knee surgery. And by the way, the boys in Overdrive are having fun at your expense.
Bloody Jason Strudwick. I'll get him too.
They bring Jason Strudwick into the conversation on Tuesday on Overdrive. And he made it sound like you were getting like arthroscopic surgery, like they were going to pull like a minuscule piece of cartilage out of your knee because it hurts. Well, it's far more significant.
Well, that's the problem. There is no more cartilage to pull out.
Right.
So so that's Thursday. And I had, when I went in for my pre-op blood work and all that stuff, the nurse said, so are you looking forward to this? And I said, I don't think that's the phrase that I'm looking forward to feeling better and not hurting every step, but holy smokes, I don't know if looking forward to it is the term I'd use.
Well, as you're describing that, I'm thinking, okay, well, what would I be looking forward to and dreading the most? And I think it might be the first step where you've actually got to put some level of weight on that knee. Is it going to be excruciating? Is it going to be
what I hear is you feel nothing.
Really?
Like there's no pain. The pain is all in your quads and your hamstrings and all the muscles they have to cut. But the knee itself, apparently, well, I guess it wouldn't hurt. It's a part.
Yeah.
It's like right? It's like it's a part. And hopefully they've got it oiled up and it goes. And I don't really know what to expect. I hear from a lot of people, which is really nice. Even people I don't know that have sent notes and said, oh, I had it done and this is what happened with me. And it's really kind of cool. They've reached out. But we'll have to get Darren Pang on because Panger had knee replacement surgery and he's zipping around like Panger does and says it's all good. So we'll give it a go.
He's got legs like a chicken, though, right? I mean,
and they're also much shorter. They're much shorter, even than mine, which I kind of like.
Okay, so it's not going to be top of mind for you, but I'll text Cammie if necessary. And we can share it on the Ray and Drake social media channels if we choose. I want to see a picture of you laid up in your makeshift bedroom on the main floor, right?
Why is that entertaining to you?
It's not entertaining. I don't know. It's your life. I want to be part of it. We spend so much time together here on the podcast.
Well, if you want to be part of it, come and make me dinner.
I'm not sure you're going to want what I'm cooking. By the way, like, do you have to eat through, like, does Cammie going to have to, like, grind up all your food into pablum and things like that?
Dregs. I don't have a broken jaw where you put it in a blender. I mean, I assume it's like any other surgery. You can eat, but you can't move whatever they fix.
Yeah, see, this conjures up all sorts of visuals that we're not going to go down this road because when you're laid up like that, your life is stalled. Everything that you do in a 24-hour span is a problem and probably painful. So, all the best to you, my friend.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to week 3. Everybody says after week 2 you do much better. So it's 3 weeks.
Well, we definitely are going to get weekly updates, and maybe you'll share a little bit on social media.
Yeah, for sure.
Fire out a few chums, pals, that kind of stuff.
I think while I'm under medication, it's probably best my phone stays in a different place.
Yeah, that's fair for sure. A reminder, check out Ray and Dregs' YouTube channel. You can watch full episodes, interviews from past podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. It'll be worth the watch, especially when we get Ray all hooked up and ready when he's healthy enough to resume the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Hey, you know about the Tim Hortons NHL Superstar Mini Stick promotion in stores, drive-through, and on the Tim Hortons app. We've talked about it here on the podcast. $5.99 each while supplies last. We've got the contest going on now. at rayanddregs.com, where you can enter for a chance to win a set of our custom limited edition locker mini sticks that Tim's created for us. We've signed these things. They are beauts. So a big thank you to everyone who went by Tim Hortons during the Smile Cookie Week as well. If you're interested in partnering with us here on the podcast, hit up our website, raindregs.com, and fill out the sponsorship information that is supplied there. Headlines this week brought to you by our friends at Boston Pizza. BP Kids cards are back for a limited time. When you make a $5 donation, you get 5 free kids meals. All proceeds go to the Boston Pizza Foundation's Future Prospects, helping Canadian kids get more time with role models. Kids cards only available for a limited time and only at Boston Pizza. All right, headlines this week, Ray. Why don't let's get a quick thought from you on the Stanley Cup Final. All right, before Razor will fill us in on some of the nuances from a Dallas Stars perspective, what he's seeing. Hard not to be impressed, I think, with the bounce back of the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 2, but also predictable, wasn't it? Given the way that they didn't play well in Game 1 in the first 2 periods, but we saw more of what we're accustomed to seeing from the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 3rd period. So was it predictable for you that they would show the resolve that they did and even the series?
Why? I mean, they looked just completely worn out in the first 40 minutes of Game 1.
Yeah.
And Dallas, I thought, really controlled much of the play. And then the game got tipped over on its ear. And the that 3rd period, Tampa had 43 shot attempts. Like, the puck was in the zone the entire time. And so it made me think that, okay, they got untracked a little bit. They turned the page on the last series, and now they're more engaged. And so I suspected they would come out now in Game 2 and play much better. Dallas killed themselves in the first period. I mean, they took 3 straight penalties.
Yeah.
And of course, eventually Tampa's going to break through on the power play. They had one of the best power plays in the league in the regular season, and it sucked in the Islander series and in Game 1 against Dallas. So you got to think they're going to get a couple. But what makes me think this series is not like that the page didn't just turn and can't go back is that Dallas ended up down 3-0. They carried a lot of the play after that. And, they get it back to 3-2, and Jamie Benn, I think, had a chance with, seconds left. I mean, it was not like Tampa coasted to the win. And I see a series that doesn't spread out here.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch moving forward. Not much of a buzz around it. And I think that's, also predictable given the fact that there are no fans in the building, and it's not in Tampa Bay and it's not in Dallas. So you don't have the electricity that we've experienced in the past in the Stanley Cup cities. But the hockey is still very good. The hockey is good.
The hockey's great. It's super intense, I think, or at least it appears to be. When you talk about the fans, not only just in the game, like in the arena, but Dregs, I'm thinking about in Tampa Bay, they built that plaza.
Right.
It's right outside the arena. Like the last time Tampa was in the finals, that thing was packed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so fun to be in there. We had a set outside there, and you'd go out through the fans, and it was just, the energy was incredible. And then just think in Dallas, in front of American Airlines Arena, they've got that big kind of horseshoe right in front of the arena. That thing would be going wild. And our guest, Daryl Reaugh, would be kind of the ringleader of it. Like, he'd be right in the middle of it. And man, it's of the many things that it's just too bad. That's too bad. I mean, look, the league, when we started, Dregs, remember, we were saying, can they even get to the finish line here?
Yeah.
Like, how is this even going to work? Well, they've got there. Here we are at the finals. Yet it can never be what it normally would be.
I got mugged in Dallas in 1997-98, that season. Larry Isaac, of course, veteran producer. So I was hosting an Oilers game in Dallas at Old Reunion Arena. And we went to, is it Dallas Alley? Remember that string of bars? I think it is Dallas Alley. Yeah. And it's like 2:00 in the morning. And to get to is it the Hyatt near Reunion Arena? You used to have to walk under the overpass.
Yes.
And so stupidly, I leave Dallas Alley, early flight. I want to get home. I probably left at about 1 o'clock in the morning, so it wasn't that early. But I walked alone, which isn't smart in any city, right, at that time of night. And Larry Isaac said to me, do yourself a favor. You know, he's a veteran guy. I'm green as grass. Put $20 in one pocket and then everything else in the other, so that if you ever get mugged, you reach in and say, dude, all I got is $20, right? So I did that. As I walk into, I'm headed to the underpass, this guy comes up to me and pulls a knife out, like a pocket knife, but a knife. I'm like, oh no. And so he says, give me your money. So I reach in, pull out my $20, and I maybe had 80 in the other pocket. So I go, so anyway, he takes my $20 and an old Sportsnet watch that I just got, something along those lines. And that was it. And he gave me some advice after taking my watch and my $20.
That was nice of him.
Yeah, he said, you'd better run because there are 3 more guys just like me on the other side of the tunnel. And I'm like,
what the? Why didn't you turn around, man?
Yeah, I ran. I got through it. Anyway, that was my experience in 97, 98 in Dallas. I've never liked Dallas since. Nothing against the Stars. I just didn't like it. Speaking of life, did you catch?
Casey.
That's a crazy story, huh?
It is, man. Sorry.
Well,
did you have any remnants in your shorts?
No, well, so this is a prairie boy. I thought I was a big shot, right? I mean, I was probably well oiled by that time. But again, the old Hyatt at Reunion Arena, he had those big brass keys. That was before the electronic locks.
Yeah.
So I had that big key with the pointy part of the key through my fist, holding it, thinking, well, if I might have to take a swing here. Like I have to defend myself in some capacity. Anyway, there was nobody on the other side. The guy just scared the bejesus out of me, and I got to my room.
Not to make this about hockey, because your story is awesome. You know what else was scary in Dallas at Reunion Arena? Playing against those guys.
How bad?
They were monsters. And and that rink was small and loud, and man, it was never. We were always so excited going to Dallas until the game started.
I'll bet.
And then they beat you, and then they beat the hell out of you, and then you went home.
Then you went home.
That was fun.
Did you read the article by Emily Kaplan and Greg Wyshynski on ESPN.com with?
I did.
The collection of anonymous players who some of them might still be in the bubble for all we know, but. Anyway, I read it and I was fascinated by it. Some of it seemed like low-level grumbling until you start to think, well, hold on a sec. You're literally being held captive, right? I mean, they're talking about not having a ton of access to the outdoors to simply get a breath of fresh air. All of the things that in our life we take for granted, these players don't have access to. So as I read the piece, I was like, wow. That doesn't sound like any fun at all to me.
No, I thought they did a really good job of, they covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was a fast read because you were interested in what was coming next. The 2 things that stood out for me about the air was somebody said they started to look forward to the bus rides.
Yeah.
Because they got out of the gates of where they can only go and in the bubble. And I was like, man, the bus ride is exciting. Like, that sucks. that would be the highlight of your day. And the other was at the JW Marriott in Edmonton. One team had moved from the Sutton Place to the Marriott. And so you don't even walk outside anymore. You walk in the tunnel underneath. And the one guy said it had been 2 days and he realized, I haven't taken a breath of fresh air yet. And where do you go? There's nowhere to go. And so it's, I can imagine the challenge a little more clearly once Emily wrote about it. You could picture, okay, you're in your room. Where are you going to go? So say you want to go for a walk. or see something else, you're going to call one of the 25 guys that you've seen every day for 9 weeks. Like, you can't. There's no variety to anything. And maybe you can say it's a first world problem or whatever, but these are real challenges that that guys are living through.
Yeah. Speaking of challenges, did you have any issue with any of the major awards being handed out earlier this week? I mean, the Hart goes to Leon Draisaitl. He was the first pick on my ballot. The Norris Trophy, Roman Josi, the Calder, Cale Makar, Vezina to Connor Hellebuyck. Look, it's a transparent process. Now, we don't vote for the Vezina within the PHWA. That's voted on by general managers. I guess the only issue I had with the process this year, and it's a unique time, but it's basically the same every year, is don't you kind of wish we would wait on the vote? Maybe even wait until the end of the playoffs, right? No, so you've got but I'm looking at, again, this isn't picking at the media, but Vasilevsky didn't have a great regular season up until the pause, right? But played well enough. His team is in the Stanley Cup Final, and he earned one first place vote as a Vezina finalist. Now, do you think the general managers, if they had watched him to this point, and I'm not taking anything away from Connor Hellebuyck, I'm just saying, do we need a larger sample size from Quinn Hughes in the playoffs, Cale Makar in the playoffs, any of these guys who might be in Hart consideration?
No, it's always been the regular season only.
Yeah,
you've got we generally have to get our ballots in, I think, by the first game of the playoffs. And you could say that somebody, because of recency bias, would completely flip a vote by having 3 good weeks in the playoffs. That shouldn't override what goes on for the regular season. I don't have a problem with any of the votes. I don't have a problem with it being transparent. What I do have a problem with is people not liking a person's vote.
Yeah.
And the venom that goes towards that person. I'm even more okay with it with the fans. Yeah, go ahead. I know you have a affiliation to your favorite players on your favorite team. But when other media members are critiquing someone else's vote, who the hell do you think you are?
Exactly.
Just make your vote.
Yeah.
And it's not for you to criticize someone else's vote.
Yeah.
If it is, that means you think that you're such an expert that you're beyond reproach.
Right.
And I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Well, I get it. For me, and then we're not going to go through all the major awards. By definition of the Hart, most valuable to his team, that was a challenging one this year, right? I mean, Leon Draisaitl had a fantastic year. Connor McDavid was really good this year too. So who's more valuable to the Edmonton Oilers? Is it Leon? Is it Connor? Well, it depends on the night, depends on the game, right? I think that they're of equal value to that team. But then you throw Nathan McKinnon into the equation, and I don't think there's any question that Nathan McKinnon is the most valuable player on the Colorado Avalanche. So
it's not even close, right?
Yeah, so by definition, should he have won the award? And
I'll throw one other name into that, and I know he was probably thought of on a lower tier. I voted for him second, and that's Artemi Panarin. Yeah. Because without him on the ice, the Rangers were a train wreck for much of the season. He had an unbelievable season. The splitting of hairs to the exact wording of the award either needs to be clarified or needs to be broadened. And it's like a lot of things. This award came out and the wording came out, I don't know, in the 40s. Things have changed.
Yeah.
And so I believe they need to, what I would like to see anyway, is I'd like to see all the awards put in the Hall of Fame and left there. Have new awards with more modern names, like for example, the Hart Trophy, the Ross Trophy. People don't even know why they're named that. They're all named after a bunch of owners anyway, in most cases. Why can't the awards, why can't there be a Wayne Gretzky Award or like we've got the Ted Lindsay Award, but why can't there be a Gretzky Award for the top scorer?
Right.
Or the Bobby Orr Award for instead of the Norris Trophy. And then you can redefine for 2020 what all these awards mean. And I think that takes away some of the historical back and forth BS that goes on.
All right. Well, we've got to make room for Daryl Reaugh. But before we do that,
Daryl Reaugh needs lots of room.
Yeah.
We got to give Reaugh, he's a big man. He needs expanse.
Yeah. Sucks up a lot of air in the room. It's a good thing we're not in the same room, none of us in the same room. But we've got to do our playoff performers of the week. Yeah. I went first last week, and I changed it up, and I went Braden Point back to back. I'm not going Braden Point. There's the tease. So you go first this week, because I feel like you're digging deep on this one for your doer player of the week.
Well, I don't know that I'm digging deep here. What I am looking at is every team that wins has somebody or some buddies that give their team just unexpected offense or unexpected performance. Last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the guy I think of as an unexpected performer was Oscar Sundqvist, who had an outstanding playoff for St. Louis. He was terrific for them. So this week's doer player for me is Jamie Alexiak. And He's got 5 goals in the playoffs. I think he's skating better than I've ever seen him skate. And maybe that's got to do with confidence. But man, he's all over the ice, up and down the ice. He's never been like that. This is a guy that was drafted in the first round, traded to Pittsburgh for a 4th rounder. Didn't work out. So Pittsburgh traded him back to Dallas for the same 4th rounder. Like, the guy got traded for himself. And he's the quietest of the Dallas defense in their top 4. But they ride that 4. Klingberg, Heiskanen, Lindell, and Alexiak.
Yeah.
And Jamie Alexiak's been awesome. More goals this year in the playoffs than he's had in any regular season in his career.
Yeah, I mean, provided he can help it, he should never leave the Dallas Stars organization. He reminds me of David Perron with the St. Louis Blues. I mean, Perron goes elsewhere, and he's just not the same player. And then he goes.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So you're going to run into Seattle in a year.
Ooh.
So you have Klingberg, Lindell, and Heiskanen.
You can only protect 3.
And so you're like, oh. Right? Like, that's where, like, Vegas was able to get good players that would have never been available in the past.
Yeah. All right. You want my doer playoff performer of the week?
Well, I have to. Yes, accept it. Yes.
It's in balance. I'm going Nikita Kucherov. Again, every week I go out on the limb, Ray. Like, I go right on the edge here. I liked his overall game in game 2. I mean, he had the accidental collision with Jamie Benn. He was clearly stung on the play. He left for a short period of time, comes back, and what was his first shift back? He takes a stick to the head.
Next shift,
crashed
into the end boards. His first 5 shifts were a train wreck.
Like, unbelievably bad. And I give him credit because he's got a short fuse. He can lose it on occasion, right? But he maintained his composure. He was beaten up in every which way. And then we saw the dominance, the creativity, and how skilled he is, especially on the power play, which got the Tampa Bay Lightning going. So for all of the experiences of Nikita Kucherov in game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, he is my doer playoff performer of the week. By the way, use code RAY to get 15% off everything site-wide at doer.ca. Ray, I just ordered another pair of Doer jeans. And
nice.
I you know what? I'm giving you full props for this, because before we were doing the podcast, before I knew anything about Doer, you said to me, don't be afraid to spend a little money on some jeans. And there's this designer jean that I have that is off the charts, and it was Doer, and that's probably a couple 3 years ago now.
Well, comfort, yes, but you needed a little bit of a jean style upgrade. Your jeans from 1987.
Yeah.
You actually, now that I think of it, you might have been wearing those jeans when you were mugged in Dallas.
Yeah, could have been the GWGs. And by the way, I think I've said this on the podcast before, maybe episode 1 or 2. In high school, the high school newspaper voted my backside as the nicest in the school in those blue jeans. So just be careful with this one. You know,
And was this in Langenberg?
it was, in fact, it was in Langenberg. You imagine having a
no, hang on. How many people in the high school? I want to know the competition.
I want to say there were like 35 in my graduating class, grade 12, somewhere around there. But it was grade 10, 11, and 12. It was a mass vote. It wasn't just the
A mass vote.
You imagine such a vote now? I mean,
but I can't imagine you getting a vote anyway.
I got all of them. I was like the Hart Trophy winner for Derriers. It's outstanding. Anyway, we've got to roll. Our interview with Daryl Reaugh is coming up next. It's brought to you by our friends at coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. We know sports are back around the globe. The NFL has started recently, along with all the free sports and casino games. Coolbet.co now has exactly what you need. Daily betting odds, line report covering all of the day's action. You can check that out. You got to be 19 years old to play. Coolbet reminds you, stay cool and always bet responsibly. All right, pleased to be joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Dallas Stars famed broadcaster Daryl Reaugh. And Daryl, Ray Ferraro and I were talking about this early in the pod about how difficult, how challenging things must be for you, because paint the picture for us. Normally, you spend basically every waking moment in season covering the Dallas Stars, and you travel with the team and you call games like you would normally call them and have over the past 2+ decades. But you're not in the bubble in Edmonton, and you're still calling the Stanley Cup Final and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Explain your environment and how challenging it is.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's an honor to be on with you two guys this morning.
Okay.
Just the nature of all of this is bizarre. I mean, we're in a TV filled room. I mean, it's just a room. It's as antiseptic as it could be. It looks like you walked into a Best Buy or something. It's just a wall of TVs up there. And we're in Irving, Texas, calling games from a Canadian feed of the actual games. Get this, because the American feed is too delayed, and we have trouble syncing it up. Because I mean, we're enslaved to whatever's coming across the television. We have no other avenue to figure out what's going on in Edmonton, and you're doing the best you can with what you see. And you miss all those things that you usually get. You pick up stuff away from the play, get a sense of the environment, obviously ride the emotions of the crowd that you're in the midst of. So it's it's a different animal altogether. But I'll say this: it has its challenges, but at the same time, I feel like maybe you do a better job in my role of being a color guy or an analyst, in that you're describing. I thought this when we were doing games on television the same way in the opening round, because you're really telling people or talking to your audience with the same thing that they're seeing. So you're not introducing all this stuff away from things that you're trying to make yourself seem smarter than what you are. You're just sitting along with them, and we're talking hockey. So that's the little mini positive, I guess, that comes with it. But for the most part, man, I hope we never ever have to do this again. But unfortunately, I think this is probably coming down the old pike.
Razor, how about when that highlight comes up and it might be a play that you're not even really thinking about, then you got no idea what's coming.
Well, you just, you have the gift of babble, and you can baffle them with your BS as you motor through it, and you're talking and trying to figure out what you're seeing at the same time. Yeah, and that's why. And look at they're different broadcasts. The American broadcast on NBC down here, and whatever we get from north of the border are always different broadcasts. And me being a hockey guy, true and grew up on what you guys do up there. The broadcast that we get emanating from Canada is easier to follow as an analyst because you're anticipating the same things that you're going to see. Whereas the American broadcast, man, sometimes they go to the guy inside the glass, or they need to do this, or they're talking about something else, and you're just left scrambling. So, hey, I'm on radio now. It's theater of the mind. So I'm just trying to paint some pictures and do the best we can and move through this thing.
I was doing a game a couple of years ago, and it was a simulcast feed. We were taking the pictures from the Chicago broadcast, and Chris Cuthbert and I were doing the game for NBC. Well, they drew on the telestrator razor at a commercial. And so all our producer could tell us was, yeah, telestrator off the commercial. I don't even know what the play is. So we come back out of the break, and Cuthbert says, Ray, you had a chance to draw on the telestrator during the commercial.
He did not.
And so I'm like, I got no idea what's coming. And so I'm like, I think he, like you're making it up as you go along, and I'm trying to catch it up.
Yes.
It's like it is a challenge, man.
But the thing that frightens us is if we ever lose the feed, man, we are cooked. Like I can make some stuff up, but I can't just fabricate a hockey game in my mind that's going on. So, but at the same time, we did this way back in the day when I was working with ESPN. We would do a thing called a backbencher. I don't know if you ever did those
Yes.
way back when. Essentially, that's what you were doing. I mean, you're just pirating a broadcast and stamping it with your own call and your own analysis. And you had like one camera or something like that. And you know how this works. I can see this becoming a little bit more of the norm going forward. Just because we've proven through technology here now that we can do this.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to be at this level, but anything to save a buck, I'm sure going forward. And the major positive is as soon as that game ends, man, I'm jumping my car and I'm home in 20 minutes. Instead of trying to unwind in a hotel room and waiting for buses and everything else. So it's a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative, and something we'll never ever forget, obviously.
How unexpected has this all been, Razor? For Dallas, to get all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, it's unexpected, yes, but at the same time, there have been or was a stretch here and there in the regular season under two different coaches where this team looked like one of the best in the league. You have a tough time arguing against it. They tied a franchise record for consecutive wins, and they've had some pretty good teams down here. And then they came close again to doing the same thing, basically under Rick Bowness after that. But then they would have these valleys where they couldn't score to save their life, and that was the main thing that would undermine them, because their defensive game for the most part stayed consistent. They were the second best goal suppression team in the league again this year. They were last year, but they would get all these chances to score, and they would just fizzle. They would either run into great goaltending or make goaltending look great, or they would just panic and not convert when they got the chances. But the chances seemed to be there all the time. They just couldn't put it all together. And a lot of their best players just had subpar regular seasons offensively. I think it started to weigh on them mentally. So they get into this, are coming out of the pause, and much has been told about it, and it's true. I watched it. Rick Bowness in their little mini camp tweaked things offensively and said, we're gonna get our D more involved, and you probably attest to this as much as I do. Man, you can't ask 3 forwards to beat 5 defenders and a goalie consistently and think you're going to be a good offensive team. So they work to get their defense more involved with their attack, but at the same time get their forwards to understand that they're going to have to be responsible and back things up in the game of interchangeable parts. So they get up in the bubble, and it's the same thing we've been witnessing. They can't score, they can't win early in the round robin and that. And then they get healthy, and the bizarre nature of some of those games in the opening round against Calgary, they got some confidence. They started to roll. Their defense really leaned in offensively. And, I mean, they've overcome some stuff that usually is fatal in playoff hockey. And they're a bit charmed. That's part of this run for them right now. And they're in the Stanley Cup Final because they have this real strong internal community. Like, they're playing hard for one another. You can see it. And they're playing hard for Rick. But they're also getting all kinds of breaks, and they've stepped out of what was getting them in all kinds of trouble in the regular season with their inability to score goals. And now they feel like they can score when they need to.
Well, it's going to be a hell of a series. Dallas Stars analyst Daryl Reaugh joining us on the Ray and Dregs hockey podcast. Daryl, you talked about Rick Bowness. I can't think of another person in hockey that's more likable, frankly, than Rick Bowness. Now, Jimmy Neal, the general manager of the Dallas Stars, has addressed this through the media at least a couple of times throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. What's your best guess as to what Rick Bowness will do as early as next season? Because Neal and the Dallas Stars have made it clear if he wants to be the full-time head coach of the Dallas Stars, they'll happily remove the interim tag off. What do you think happens?
Darren, I tend to lean toward he'll be the head coach of this team going forward, whether they win this cup or don't win it. Because if they win it, this might sound odd, but if they win it, there's a better chance that he doesn't come back as coach. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's been a lifelong goal. He's worked toward it for 5 decades, and how are you going to top that? And just with the entire environment we're living in right now, maybe he does step away from it. I'd have a tough time seeing that or believing that, though, because he's just such a hockey lifer, and it seems like the game and coaching and teaching is oxygen to him. Now, if they lose in the final, he's got to. I would think he's got to be thinking in his mind, I want another kick at this. We're so close. Let's come back and do this over a full season and see if we can win this thing. That's kind of my take on it. And again, I mean, he interviewed for the job in Ottawa last year, the head job. So it's not like he's 1 foot out the door. Like he obviously had some desire to still pursue a head coaching job, and now he has it. And so I'd say it's right now probably, I don't know, 70-30, 80-20 that he's back.
Nice.
Razor, I went through his Wikipedia page, and
it's a long one, isn't it?
Oh man, like I'm sure there is, but can you think of a more unique career than Rick's? It's like he has been literally coaching since the minute he stopped playing, and in places he was let go, like say he's let go somewhere in May, he signs with a new team in June. Like, can you think of anybody different, like that's like that? I can't.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like Gabby, Bruce Boudreau, like some of his path has been miraculous and meandering and stick to it, and he'd get fired in one place and within the hour he'd be hired somewhere else. So, there's some of that with him. Even John Cooper, like look at that path that he's been on and where he started, not even in the business. So, but for a hockey lifer, yeah, I mean, dealt some bad cards along the way and just keep a sunny disposition and move forward. And it's that attitude always, man, it's infectious. He's got so much energy, like every morning at the rink on the ice. I mean, he's 65 years old and he acts like this is his first coaching job. And, he doesn't seem to really have much of an issue as to who's getting all the accolades or who has the power. And some of that comes from being an assistant and an associate for most of his career. I think he has a real healthy respect and gives the guys around him a lot of power and voice and responsibility because of that. And man, it would be great. I've never seen more people come out in support of and in the hopes of him realizing his dream of winning a Stanley Cup than I have with Rick in this run this year. It's been amazing and heartwarming, and he's one of the most enjoyable guys to ever be around in this sport. That's for sure.
Razor, before you came on, we were talking about, it's like many things these days. It's a shame that we can't have, more swell of enthusiasm because there's no fans anywhere.
Yeah.
Describe what your image is like of you would be sitting in the middle of that plaza in front of the arena with that place packed if Game 3 were coming to Dallas. Like, what would that be like?
Yeah, I mean, all of the periphery things that go on when you go on a run like this. It's been 20 years down here since the Stars were in a Stanley Cup Final, and the last time they even got to a conference final was in 2008. So it's two completely different generations, and some core fans that have been there since day one here. But this is the time of year, especially in a market like this, where you cultivate and bring in and draw more of the casual fan that turns into a fan, and the hype is big, and this city loves winners. And the atmosphere inside American Airlines Center would have been just absolutely enthralling, and the energy that comes around the arena and in the city, and that although there is so much sports going on right now that you almost have to carve out your own little chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Because you understand. I mean, this is big time football territory down here, and we've never played in September and October. You're Stanley. You own the spring, and all of a sudden now you're up against Cowboys football on a Sunday, and college football on a Saturday, and high school football on a Friday. But in some ways, a big way actually, you just feel like you're getting cheated this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been 20 years, and some of these fans that have been around forever and stayed with the franchise, and you'd love them to be along for the ride in person. I mean, they are emotionally and on television and on radio and that, but it's just not the same. But you also wonder whether they, with the changes of venues along the way, whether that would have affected things too. And maybe you wouldn't be here, trying to win a Game 7 in Colorado or trying to beat Vegas in Vegas and things like that, rather than in a neutral site, essentially in Edmonton, in a bubble where your only advantage being the home team is the last change, and that's it.
Razor, I just looked up your hockey DB because I wanted to be sure. So our good buddy Darren Pang often talks about his 27 games in the NHL. I didn't realize you guys got the same number of games.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I think I think it's Darren Pang, myself, and Jim Craig from the U.S. Olympic team. I think we all played the same number of games.
See, I like
Yeah,
it.
we're all household names too, right?
Now, when your career is going on, at one point you're the backup in Edmonton, and Grant Fuhr plays like 75 games.
It was almost as if Slats didn't have confidence in me or something.
He looked down, he saw this great big gigantic guy, and he's like, "No, Grant, you go back in there." Like, what do you do all year? Like, I know you practice, but like, how? Like, that had to be kind of hard, no?
What in Edmonton? Oh God, yeah. I mean, that was they were all the big boys were off at Team Canada in Canada Cup in '87, and Andy was holding out and wanted to trade, Andy Moog, and so it was like my job to lose, basically. I mean, there was going to be a spot open finally. I remember Slats saying to me a couple of years before that, maybe it was the year before that, they were playing Calgary in the playoffs, and you'll love this. And Slats wanted his Audi in Calgary for the 2 games down there. So he asked Jeff Bukaboom and I if we would drive his car down for him. So we did. So we drove his car down for him, and we had to go out to his place and pick it up and that. And I remember, he was telling me in the car, he's like, "When I think you're ready, I'll trade one of those guys." And it was like, he's not going to trade Grant. And both of them were all-stars. They were in their early 20s. It was a tough spot to be as a third goaltender. And then ultimately Andy forced a hand and went with the Olympic team. And there was a spot open, and I remember there was like Don Edwards and Mike Palmatier were in camp, these veteran guys. And I had a terrific camp. And you remember back in those days, I mean, you played 13, 14 preseason games.
Yeah.
So you had a pretty large, wide swath of games to prove yourself, and did that. And then everybody comes back from Team Canada. I mean, everybody. It was basically the Oilers and a few other players on that club. And away we go into the regular season, and I didn't play, and man, your confidence just erodes, and you're getting torn apart in practice by that group. And and after a while, to be honest with you, I couldn't blame them for not putting me in. I probably looked like a mess in there, and by the end of the year, I mean, they made the deal for Bill Ranford, and that was pretty much the end of things. I was still the third goaltender there, and then Billy went on to be a stud in 1990 when they won their 5th. So they made the right choice, I guess.
I can't believe you drove Slats' car.
Isn't that great, though?
Did you drive? Were you were the designated driver in this escapade?
I think Book drove, and fast, man. We trucked it down to Calgary in that thing. We had it wide open. We blew out the carb. Different time, but that was the series where Gret scored that shorthanded goal in overtime, coming down the wing. Yeah, past Mike Vernon. Right. Yeah. Greatest goal I've ever seen. I watched it live from up above there at the Saddle Dome. Unbelievable. It was just an unconscious shot, but yeah. So Panger always has the Memorial Cup over me when we played against one another then, and I always have the fact that at least I have a shutout in the NHL. He doesn't. So boom.
Wow. Eat that, so there Panger. You go, Panger.
Mic drop. Yeah.
So, Ray's, I got to ask you really quickly. Your daughter's at Alabama, playing volleyball.
I got one at Alabama and one at OU. Yeah.
Wow. So how do you follow that? Can you? Because obviously you can't. Or can you get there? I guess. Or is there anything to watch? Like, what are they doing with the collegiate?
I know.
You know what?
Yeah. I
And how are they doing?
I feel for all these D1 athletes down here and trying to navigate this. And my youngest daughter's, she had to go through graduation and finish up her high school career in the beginning of the pandemic. And then you move her out to Tuscaloosa and in the middle of this thing again, and trying to figure out whether they were even going to play or not. And, everything's dependent on whether football plays, because it pays the freight for everything else. So they're going to have a truncated schedule out there, and they get going in about 3 weeks. So the timing actually is going to work out. I think we're going to travel out and watch her in Bama and a little bit on the road, but they're not going to play. It's almost going to be like 2 series or 2 seasons. They're going to play some in conference games here in the fall, and then they're going to play again in the spring. So, and then my high jump daughter at Oklahoma is trying to figure out whether they're going to have an indoor season or not. And, they're all training toward something that they don't know what it's going to be. And my little Kendall, they have to practice in masks all the time and get tested all the time. And then try to stay away from what they call NARPs at school, the non-athletic regular people. And, try to make sure, because those people, they don't care as much. They're not getting tested all the time. And it affects whether these girls are going to play or not. So it's a lot to navigate. I applaud them, but it ain't easy. It ain't easy at all. It's not easy on the girls, not easy on the parents.
No. All right. Well, we appreciate you.
But roll Tide.
What's that?
Roll Tide.
But roll Tide.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, Daryl, to join us here on the podcast, and enjoy the ride with the Dallas Stars as they try and claim another championship.
She's a best of 5 now. Just have to win 3 more.
Wow, you see, that's the analysis I'm looking for right there.
That is rural northern British Columbia school system, and John. By the way, John Cooper and I are from the same hometown. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
No.
Yeah, 2 PG boys.
Wow!
Look at us. Look at where we ended up. Isn't it though?
Can you do something today, Razor? Or maybe today or in game 4 if there's a dull moment. You said like you're just painting a picture, right? For the radio at time. So I read this article on Bob Uecker. And so Bob Uecker has been doing Milwaukee Brewers games for forever. And so he makes up stories on the radio that aren't true. And he just talks about there's one place he talked about, oh yeah, I look at the warehouses beyond the left field line, and that's where the munitions plants were in the war. And there was none, but could you make up a little tale like that and just drop it in somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. I could. If you're challenging me to do so, then it's on, and I'll do that.
Oh yeah, I am.
And just to bring it back around again, full circle here. You mentioned that, so we're in Tampa back in December, and I'm having a quick chat with Coop, and John Cooper challenges me to get a couple words into the broadcast that night. So he wanted me to get PG and Sasquatch into the game, and I got them both in. I nailed them both. Bam.
In what context would you use Sasquatch?
I think it was with Victor Hedman. And I said, Hedman comes down the slot because he's hairy, big beard. He comes down the slot like a great big Sasquatch and Tess Sadobin.
That's tremendous.
Anything to keep me engaged there, Ray Ferrero.
I like it. I'll be looking.
All right,
buddy. Thanks, Daryl.
All right, see you, boys. Good being with you.
All the best, Razor. Thanks, man.
One of the good characters of our industry, Ray, Daryl Reaugh of the Dallas Stars. And as we talked about earlier in the podcast, I mean, this isn't easy what he's doing from afar. It would be difficult if he were with the team, part of the personnel inside the bubble in Edmonton. He's not. He's in a studio in Dallas, trying to do his job as best he can, and he does a great job and has an unbelievable sense of humor.
Yeah, I feel like, you want to do the best job you can, but you're really hampered by what you're able to do in their position. And he's not wrong that in a lot of businesses, broadcasting businesses, the non-travel is very likely to become a thing.
Right.
And it's going to make it more challenging to present the games. And so you do the best you can. And I know he does a good job because he's creative and energetic, but it's not easy.
So here's a hard-hitting question for Ray Ferraro. Are you ready? Why are there so many damn goalies who are analysts in the National Hockey League? So you guys talked about Darren Pang. Obviously Daryl Reaugh. Glenn Healy isn't an analyst anymore, but was for many, many years. I mean, go down the list. There's so many of them. Why do you think that is? They have so much time in their crease standing around that they can think of things to say and just automatically morph into being commentators when their career is over?
Well, all three of those guys you mentioned first were backups as well. So they also had plenty of time to just sit there and talk to everybody else. It was, man, if you had a good backup goalie, the good backup goalie wasn't just a guy that could come in and win. He's a guy you could talk to.
Right.
And it's amazing. They've got nothing else to do but open the door. And man, you can have some good conversations with those guys. But here's the thing that I always laugh at. And I wish you would have brought this up because I would have liked to talk to Razor about it, is that so when I make a comment about a goalie, I will hear from fans that say, what the hell do you know about playing goal?
Right.
The answer is not much, except what I've learned from talking to goalie coaches and goalies. And, and I try to expand upon that. But if that's the case, the goalie should never talk about anything else except the guy standing in the crease.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have discussed that with him.
Yeah, that's too bad. Next time. Well, chances are, given our want to, bring in the characters of the game, and often that includes some of the media members and color analysts, et cetera, we'll probably cross paths with another goalie or two along the way. We haven't had Panger on, and we do have to have.
We're going to have Panger on. We're going to have Darren Robert Pang on because he's entertaining.
Yeah.
Because he loves golf. Yeah. And because right now he's my knee replacement consultant.
Oh, very good. Yes. Yes.
I got to tell you one quick thing about Panger. I'll give you really quick. Last night, I get a video from Panger. He's with a couple of guys we play golf with, and like just out of the blue. And he's like, hey, just wishing you well for your surgery. And this guy, Kevin, he had it. And one of the buddies, Kevin, goes, yeah, I feel great. And, since I had it, and he shows another guy, John, and John's like, my knees are fine. I've never had any surgery. But it was really nice of the three of them to say, but that was all Panger.
Hey, did you know, by the way, that Darren Pang plays Mira irons? I didn't know that.
Yes, they're fantastic irons. I recommend them for everyone. Take a look at them. The Mira, the way that they're forged, they're one of the finest clubs you'll come across. Oh, did I mention that I use them too?
Yeah, see, that's why I brought it up. I didn't want you to shamelessly endorse the irons because I didn't want to put you in that spot. But I did want to give you the opportunity. No different than me going to the Titleist National Fitting Center on Friday to check out their new collection of irons and drivers. I'll be there.
I'm glad you went there, but hopefully someone helped you with your swing because the wrenches are only as good as the guy hanging on to them.
That's a very valid and fair point. I'll let you know, by the way, if not next week, the week after, how the fitting session went. Time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, brought to you by our friends at Sure Health from Green Shield Canada. You can visit them online at surehealth.ca or call 1-844-855-SURE. At Flippy on Twitter. We're going off the rails immediately. Compliments of
Sure.
Flippy. Which Canadian team, Ray, is closest to winning the Stanley Cup? This is a clip that's going to live, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Which Canadian team closest to winning the Stanley Cup? Nee, 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 nee,
I don't know how you could even pick. Like, like seriously, like how?
Yeah, it's a tough
I don't know. I'll tell you who I think is going to get better over the off season fastest,
one. Okay.
and that's Montreal.
Yeah.
If I mean,
why?
they've got to
Just because the cap space and the moves that he's already made in Marc Bergevin?
well, they've got the goalie.
Yeah.
They've got Petrie and Weber on the blue line. They're adding Romanoff, who I think is going to be a very good NHL player. They've got all kinds of draft picks and all kinds of cap space.
Yeah.
Montreal's issue, in my opinion, is that they've got a bunch of guys that are good.
Right.
They don't have game breakers. They're going to have the ability to go to teams that have cap issues that are going to have to trade money and production that they don't want to, but Montreal can take it. I think Montreal's poised to be the fastest mover this offseason.
Right. But to be clear, you're not picking the Montreal Canadiens.
I'm not picking
who's closest to winning
the cup because I don't know how you would even choose.
It is a tough one given the strides of the Oilers and more recently Vancouver. What's Toronto going to do? I mean, go down the list, right? Calgary had a good run. I mean, I hear you. It's pretty much impossible.
I don't like to skirt it, but it would just be a guess.
All right. Because you mentioned Montreal, I'm going to skip over to another question from Jeffrey. Some of the most important trades a team makes that pay off long-term take place on the draft floor with all teams' management spending time together. We know that. I know that firsthand. Spent a lot of time on that draft floor over the years, and I'm always intrigued by the conversations that are taking place between the GMs there. But it's a virtual draft this year. October 6th draft, the first round, and then the rest is October 7th. Should we expect less trade activity to happen, Ray, than we would normally see during a typical year? Or is it going to have any effect whatsoever?
I think it'll be more difficult.
Yeah.
Although, Dregs, you stand on the draft floor all the time. You know, we often see the visuals of the GMs talking to each other.
Yeah.
But what we don't often see is the GM just picking up the phone and dialing another table.
Right.
And so they can do that. They can text each other back and forth. Hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And it'll be more complicated and maybe more plotting. But I think the deals that are there are still going to be there. Like I would expect, again, I'm going to bring up Montreal because they got so many picks, but Ottawa does too. I would expect those teams to put some of those picks in play. And so they could be really busy.
And I agree. And I think the days leading up to round one, October 6th, are going to be very, very active as well, right? You've still got managers as we're recording the podcast, who are in that feeling out process because there's going to be a market flooded with really good players as teams try to align with the 81.5 cap or have their own internal cap. So even though a good player is available today for a draft pick, if you're that team willing to part with a draft pick, unless that player is the perfect fit, why wouldn't you wait until the first week of October? You might get a better player with the pressure mounting. So I think once Stanley Cup Final is over, I think that it's going to get really, really active. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll take one more and ask Ray and Dregs. Anything from Albert? Albert knows that you are a baseball fan, Ray. So Albert wants to know, what do you think of the playoff format this year? And who makes it to, and then who wins the World Series?
Oh, gosh, man. Prediction.
Well, what do you think of the format? Let's start.
I don't like they included about 78 teams.
Right.
And I understand it all. I mean, so it's hard for me to be really critical, Dregs, to about any of the leagues that are trying to fit it all in, to try and generate as much revenue as they can. And where they generate the revenue is they owe their TV partners games.
Yeah.
And so they've got to get those games, they got to get them in. And so, like, how do they go about doing it while they increase the playoffs? Now, I think the Dodgers are going to win. I think they got the best team. For my money, I think they're head and shoulders better than anybody. I kind of hope they play Oakland. I've been a fan of Oakland because they've never had a lot of money. Their owner refuses to spend any of it, and that's his prerogative. But they always seem to be pretty competitive, and I could see Oakland getting through the American League.
All right, look at you. You didn't want to make a bold prediction, but you come out swinging, no pun intended anyway. Good for you.
Well, and the Dodgers, they made the trade with Boston, and they got my favorite guy, Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And that's just a hellacious good lineup with him there.
Well, Albert, bringing it right into Ray Ferraro's wheelhouse with this one, right?
Do you remember the old Canadian Tire commercial?
So Albert?
Yes.
Albert.
Yes.
Is that what
was a
came to mind
classic back in the day.
when I said Albert has a question? That's what came to mind. That with that old, it was the Mark Messier bucket, right? Remember?
Yeah, and he looked up at the crowd, and they're all going Albert, but he's just dreaming.
Who didn't
Could be
want
your
to be
dream too?
100%. I wanted to be Albert.
Yeah.
I never had that. You had that in Brandon. You had that on the island. You had that throughout your career. I never had that one time. Podcast turned sad, Ray.
Oh, you bring it home, Dregs. Bring it home.
Speaking of, I was going to tease episode 43 for next week, but it's hard to tease because are we going to play this one by ear? Just see how you're feeling, or are you just declaring right now that episode 43 is going to be delayed a week?
I'm saying it's possible, not probable. I can't imagine I'm going to feel like doing a podcast, in 5 days. I'm assuming so. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Well, we need Cammie to get you like a mini tripod or something so you can just put it on your chest, right?
And just sit there?
Yeah, just sit there and talk.
Well, actually, maybe I could get one of the boys. I mean, if we do it on the weekend, they're not at school, and they could just hold the computer there for an hour.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd love to do that.
Well, I got to give you full credit here because you're in good spirits. I mean, there's nothing you can do about this. It's going to be...
We'll be honest, Dregs, I am nervous, though.
Yeah, well, I get it, but you knew it was inevitable, and you know that it's going to improve your quality of life, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Otherwise, you're not getting it done. You've made it to this point in your life with nagging injuries, pulls, pain, all of that stuff. So if this could be fixed by taking an Advil, you'd do that, but obviously it's not. So I'm sure all of our fans wish you well, my friend.
Thanks much, Dregs. I would say the best scenario is the tail end of next week, and if not, it'll be just after the weekend.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the update and your good health.
You bet.
And the pictures. I want the pictures. We got to at least have one picture on the Ray and Dregs website.
I'll get Cammie on it.
Okay, buddy.
She'll take care of that.
All right. Well, all the best, and we look forward to a healthy return.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed Daryl Reaugh.
And a big shout out, thank you to all of our partners that make the podcast possible. We could not do it without you. Thank you, Tim Hortons. Wildly popular NHL Superstar collectible sticks are back, available $5.99 while supplies last. You can visit rayandregs.com and enter to win one of the 2 grand prizes, including our limited edition custom autographed locker boxes. We've been talking about this, showing them off on the YouTube version of the pod. Full set of this year's 6 NHL Super Mini Sticks, an autographed Ray Ferraro New York Islanders sweater, and a $100 Tim's card, all available through the contest. Full rules, regulations, and eligibility information is online at rayandregs.com. Thank you, coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. Boston Pizza, thank you. Kids cards are back. Make a $5 donation and get 5 free kids meals. Doer Performance Denim. Use the code RAY for 15% off wide on the site. Doer.ca, surehealth.ca. Call them at 1-844 855-SURE. Image Optometry. Visit image.ca. Get new glasses, pay online with your vision care benefits. And Legaro Jewelers. Hit legaro.com. Raise your watch game, folks, and save up to 20% on select Tissot watches right now. You can find the podcast and subscribe to it on YouTube, as we're doing it on video each week. So please subscribe there. Thanks to Aaron Tech Johnson for producing Ray and Dregs. And another thank you to Tony Ferraro for providing the music you hear each week as well. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to episode 43.